Hi, my name is Michelle Adra and I'm a crochet designer. This is an instructional video for my Venice bottle bag and specifically the beige and almond colored bag. I have used a 6mm crochet hook and I have used the yarn called Eco Nano tube yarn with the colors almond and beige. It's a ribbon yarn. It is approximately 80% recycled cotton and then 20% polyester. If you use another yarn, maybe a ribbon yarn, remember that it can affect the size of this bag. I would say if you measure from this length here or from this side here to this side, then you have approximately 9 centimeters. So make sure that it fits your bag, your bottle. Also, I should say that you can always go up in size or down in size when it comes to your crochet hook, which also can help you affect the size of your bottle bag. Other than that, I would say that I would not change the amount of stitches because you need 33 stitches around if you're gonna make this repeat like this pattern basically, because we're repeating it so it's looking the same or looking well all the way around. So have that in mind. I will in this instructional video show you how I went or how we are gonna start, which is gonna be with this bottom of the bag, and then we're going to work ourselves and do these shoulder straps in the very end. Now, you could make these shoulder straps before if you wanted to, but in this instructional video, we are saving it to the very end, as I said. I have these shoulder straps are about 111 centimeters long, but you can obviously choose to make it shorter if you prefer that, or longer, whatever works for you. So I think that's all I really need to say before beginning. And yeah, it's basically single crochets. And here we have used the waistcoat crochet or stitches. However, you could do this in single crochets as well if you prefer that. But again, it could affect the size of your bottle bag. Not with much, I would assume, but maybe a bit. So, and this part won't be so visible when you're carrying this bag anyway. So don't be afraid if you feel like the waistcoat stitch are a bit harder to do, because sometimes I feel like that they can be a bit tight and hard on the hands. So I think that's all I have to say. So I hope you're ready to start, and well, let's crochet. We will begin making a magic ring, and we will make 6 single crochets in this magic ring with our main color, the color A, and in this case it will be the almond color. So we will do our first single crochet in that magic ring, the second, third, 4, and then we can pull that thread a little bit, 5, and last one. And then we will pull our thread and make that little hole in the middle disappear a bit. And we will probably be pulling the string a few more times before we are completely happy, as we are working ourselves around. So counter stitches, and then make sure you're going into the right one. We will do something that is called the waistcoat stitch for this one, so we will have a nice look in the end. So we will just straight away start with increasing in every stitch. So in the end we will have 12 single crochets in each stitch. But you can also do the regular single crochets if you do want that instead, and it might not be as hard to then work yourself around. But with the waistcoat stitch, when you have to go in between the stitches like this, it can be a little bit hard and maybe a bit hard on your hands, but I think that it's worth the look in the end, or how the result will be in the end. But again, it's just the bottom of our bottle bag, so it won't be too visible if you choose to do the regular single crochet. I do think that this waistcoat stitch do add some stability to our bottom of the bag, so that's why I chose to continue with it. But take your time and just go all the way around and make sure that you're increasing in every stitch, so you will end up with 12 single crochets or waistcoat stitches. And then pull that string or thread in the end. And this is how it will look, approximately will look after you've done the second row. So now we want to make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need to do 2 more. So that can be sometimes hard to see where you're supposed to go in when you're doing this. So it's important to count. So we're going to make 2 more stitches before we continue. And I might say single crochets or waistcoat stitches, but I hope you understand that we keep doing the same stitch during the whole process of this bottom of the bag. So here we go. Now we should have 12 stitches, but we can always double check after pulling that middle a little bit. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so we want to now end this first row, and we will take out our crochet hook, go in from behind of that first stitch, fish up our loop that we just dropped, and pull it to the other side like this. And this is how we will now end every row. So it will look nice when we're changing our rows. And then I make a chain stitch, pull, and then it's time to start the new row. And we will now make one single crochet and then 1 increase. So 1, I guess, waistcoat stitch, and then 1 increase of a waistcoat stitch. But it's easier to say single crochet, so you understand what I'm saying. 1 regular, and then we were gonna make 2 in the other stitch. So as you see, we keep going in between the stitches like that, in the same one, and then we're doing the same. We're making 1, and then we're making 2 in 1, basically. And so we want to end up with 18 stitches once we've reached the end of this row. And you can use a little marker to make sure that you know where you started and where you finished. I don't. I think it's very visible for me, but I understand that it can be sometimes a little bit hard to understand. And I think it's also always important to make sure that you count the stitches in the end, so you know that you have the amount that you want. And the reason why it's also important to have the right amount once we are finished with this bottle bag bottom is because we want to make sure that we have the amount of stitches we need to create that pattern on the walls of this bag in the end. So that's why we are making sure that we are even, or that we are counting. And like, as you can see, it sometimes is a little bit hard to go through those stitches, but I think it's worth it when you see the result. So now 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And so again, we will go from the behind of that first stitch, fish up the loop that we just left, and then pull it to the other side, the back side. I will call this other side the back side. If you hear me say that, that's what I mean. Make sure you pull a bit. And as you can see, it's not super visible where we change the rows, but it's not really a big deal. But that's the reason why I do this. And then I'm just making a slip stitch because that part will not be visible once we make the walls of the bag. So now we can continue, and we will make 2 regular stitches, and then we will increase. So basically 2 single crochets, and then we'll increase in the 3rd stitch, or as 2 regular waistcoat stitches, and then we will increase in the 3rd waistcoat stitch. So we will pull through, and then 4, and then we will continue like this all the way around until we are reaching the 24 stitches that we need. And as you can see, this bottom of the bag is turning out to be pretty thick, which I think is important when you're making a bag that is supposed to carry something heavy as a water bottle, for example. But it will hold it up either way if you choose to make the regular single crochets, for example. And now we've reached almost the end of our row, so I will keep pushing my hook through there and making those last stitches. I think also the stitch style is becoming easier and easier the more stitches you made, or the more rows you've made. But it does feel a bit in your hand as well. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Go behind from that first stitch of this row. Pick up that loop, pull through, and then tighten your thread and then make a chain stitch. And then we will be ready for the next row. And we're going to make 3 regular and then increase 1, so meaning 3 single crochets or 3 waistcoat crochets, whatever you want to call them, and then we're going to increase. So 1, 2, 3, all the way through. Make sure it goes in between that stitch, and then we're going to increase here. So 1 and 2 in the same. And we're going to continue like this all the way around 6 times total. And so we're going to end up with 30 single crochets or 30 waistcoat stitches. So 3 regular, and then we're increasing in the 4th stitch 6 times all the way around. Almost there. Take your time if you feel like it is hard to do these stitches. Even take breaks if you need to. It's always possible to just pause the video. Now we've reached the end of our row, and we will do as we always do. Make sure that we have the amount of stitches that we're supposed to have. So 30 stitches all the way around. And see how beautiful that is looking. So we will now take out our crochet hook, go in through that first stitch on that row, catch that loop, drag it to the back side or inside of our piece, pull the thread, make a chain stitch, and then make it possible now to make our last, you could call this the last row. So we're going to do something where we're doing it a little bit different. So we're going to make 9 single crochets or waistcoat stitches, and then we're increasing. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We're gonna then increase in the next stitch. So 1, 2, and then we're gonna make another 9 stitches, single crochet stitches or waistcoat stitches, depending on what you're choosing to do. So 1, 2, and we're doing this because we want to reach the number 33 all the way around in the amount of stitches. I think we're up to 5 here, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's increase. 1, or maybe here we're increasing. 1, 2. There we go. And now we're going to continue making another 9 single crochets, and then we're increasing. So 1, always make sure your yarn is not twisting. So 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's increase one last time. So now I hope that we have 33 stitches all the way around, because that's the amount of stitches we will need when we're starting the wall of the bag, if you will. So we are supposed to finish this row as usual. I am now just trying to figure out if I want to do just a regular slip stitch, because we are turning our whole work, but I'm ending up doing the same thing that I have done when ending each row, and that is just to pull that little loop to the wrong side, so to speak, of this beautiful round piece that we have now crocheted. So we are now going to slip stitch all the way around, 33 slip stitches, and these slip stitches will be the foundation of the walls of this bottle bag that we will create. So as you can see, this is how I chose to create this foundation this time. So we're making 2, and like I said, we're going to just continue 3, 4, and slip stitch all the way around. Make sure you have 33 slip stitches. And once we've done that, we will make one more row with 33 single crochets into these slip stitches. And after that, it's time to create the pattern. And in this tutorial, I will show you how to make the almond and beige design, which is the design number 2 in the PDF. But you can choose from this space also to make the first design, but then you will have to follow the written pattern and not the stitches that I am saying in this tutorial in this video. So now we've almost reached all the way around, and I will crochet in, like I will sew in the end of this flat piece, if you will, a little bit soon, but you can choose to do it, pause now and do it, or you can make those single crochets first, if you will. But that is how it looks, very sturdy and firm. So now I'm making just a slip stitch and then a chain stitch before I start those walls. So as you can see now, I am working from the outside, so making sure that we are working around single crochets all the way around. We're not doing any more of that waistcoat stitch. Those are past and over. So now it's just regular single crochets all the way around. And this is how it will look, but it will all come together eventually. It can be a little hard to make your single crochets with and go past or go through those slip stitches that we've made, but don't worry, it will be worth it. I think it doing it this way creates a very nice and crisp edge, in my opinion. But you could technically start with your single crochets and just do it in the back loop of those 33 stitches that we did in the end, but I think this creates a much nicer edge. So we've now reached the end, and that should be now 33 single crochets all the way around. So this is how it looks, and we're gonna keep doing what we've done before, which is taking out our loop, our crochet hook from that loop, and then go in from the first stitch, drag that loop back into the inside of our bag, tighten that thread, and then we will make a chain stitch, not a slip stitch, a chain stitch. So now you can see it's a good time to sew in that thread all the way around. So it won't be something you have to do later on. And it's time to add the new color, which is beige. So easiest is to just take your beige thread. You're having your almond color like this, and we're putting the beige, the color B, in between, and we're making a chain stitch. So we're locking basically that color, or we're locking the color in, and then we're gonna make 2 almond single crochets and making sure that we're carrying the non-active thread the whole time. And then we're gonna make 7 beige single crochets. So before we finish that second almond crochet single crochet, we're gonna fish up that beige color and finish that second stitch of the almond color. And then, like I said, we're gonna make 7 beige single crochets. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. And before we finish that single crochet, we're gonna change back to almond, the almond color, and we're gonna make 2 almond single crochets. And then we're gonna repeat this exact pattern, so to speak, all the way around. So it started with the almond color, so we can finish the stitch, and we're going to continue and repeat that 2 more times till we reach the end, like this, looking very nice. And then we are gonna finish this row with the almond color. So we take our hook and go from the inside of our work through that first stitch of the row, drag that loop in to the inside, try to tighten our threads a bit, it takes us sometimes a little time to get used to how to do this. Sometimes I have to do it like this with just manually. Sometimes it goes straight away. Just don't forget that we're going to lock in the beige color as well. So like that is how it will sort of look. And it can be a little bit tricky, but we're going to do something differently than we did before. So we're going to leave that loop in the inside of our work. We're going to lock in the carrier thread, which is the beige right now, drag in the almond color. So we have 2 loops and then connect them like this, as you can see. So we have 2 loops. And it's going to look something like this. So you will see sort of where the row changes have been made, but at least it will not be so visible in the end, and it will feel a little bit more flat in this area. So we're making that first, that will be counted as the first stitch on the new row. We will also make another chain stitch here with the almond color, and that's still part of the first almond stitch of the 3 that is written on row 9 in the pattern. And you can see it a little bit closer here. So there we're making our chain stitch, and then you can see where that's going to be the 1, and that is replacing that first stitch there underneath. So here's our second, as you can see, and then third, and we're going to change to beige and make 5 beige stitches, single crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and then we're going to change to the almond color, and then we're going to make 3 almond single crochet, and we're going to repeat that pattern on this row 2 more times. So 2, whoops, 2, and then 3, and we're going to continue with this color and make another 3, 1, 2, and then 3, and then we're going to repeat and make 5 beige single crochets as well, and continue like this all the way around. The trick here is to make sure that your yarn balls don't get all twisted around as well, so make sure that you keep them in order. Last repetition after this, and we will end this row with the beige color, and we will finish the row and start the new one exactly like we did on the row before. One, 2, and then 3. 1, 2 there, so 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to make sure that we change to beige, because the next row will start with the beige color, so that's why we're making this change. And we're going to do it as we did before. We're going to free our hook from the loop that we're in, pick it up from the 3rd, basically the chain stitch that we did before when we started this whole row. And it can be a little bit tight sometimes, but don't worry. And then you fish up the loop that you just left and try to pull it to the inside of our crocheted piece here. It can be a little bit fiddly when you have tight stitches, but don't worry, free your hook again. And we're gonna now go through, sometimes I use my hook knot to help drag a little bit more out and tighten it, but take it out again, and then we're going to go in the same space basically where we just went in from the other side, and pick up more of that beige color so we can connect it with the other beige loop. And so we have 2 loops, and then we're gonna finish that beige stitch. Now, after this first beige color, we're gonna go back to almond almost straight away. So we'll make another chain stitch. You can see that is supposed to be replacing that stitch underneath. So it's not perfect, but it will look pretty cool once the pattern comes together. But like I said, we're gonna go straight into the almond color, so that's why we're gonna have to do a chain stitch with, or finish that chain stitch with the almond color. So that's why I did that change. And like I said, now we're gonna make 3 almond single crochets. So we've made 2, and then 3, and then we're gonna make 3 beige single crochets. And you can see that I'm constantly moving my yarn tubes or yarn balls around just to make sure that I don't tangle them together. So we have 1 beige, 3 almond single crochets, 3 now beige single crochets. Then we will go back to the almond color and make 3 almond single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then finish with 1 beige single crochet, and then we're going to repeat this 2 more times, starting with the beige color again. So 1, and we can finish this one because we're going to make a second one, like you can see here, before we change it back to the almond color. And we're repeating the same pattern sequence that we've just done. This row, as you can see, is now we're starting to see the pattern coming together. So we're going to do that all the way around, and we're going to finish with a beige stitch. And with the beige color, because the next row will start with beige again. So there we go, reaching the end, changing back to beige, making our last beige stitch, and then we're gonna continue with the beige color. There we go, and we're going to continue with that like I said. So again, free your hook from the stitch or that loop, and then again we're going to pick it up. We're going through that first stitch or chain stitch, if you will, that we did in the beginning. We're going to drag our loop back to the inside of our work at the best we can, tighten it up a little bit, and then we're going to go through just in between there, really. So you can see this is how it looks. Pretty discreet, even though you can't tell if you look closely. But I think it works beautifully anyway. So now we're going to make sure that the non-active thread, which is the almond color for now, is laying in between there before we pick up another beige loop, basically. So we're going in, picking up that thread, drag it to the other side and connect it with the other loop. There we go, and then make them fit together. And then we can make this chain stitch with the beige color because we're gonna make 2 beige single crochets before we change color. So this will count as the first, as we did before. And here is the second. And now we're changing into the almond color, and we're gonna make then, now I'm going a little bit ahead again, back, and here we're gonna change the color. Sometimes I chose to actually keep this because sometimes it can be a little bit hard even for me to remember to change color before finishing my stitch. So that's why didn't want to edit that out. So I'm sorry if it's confusing. I just wanted to show you that mistakes or sometimes it can be a little bit hard to remember even for me. We're changing colors again and making now 1 beige single crochet before we change color straight away again. So barely making a stitch, it feels like. So here, and then change straight back to the almond color, and we're gonna then make another 3 almond single crochets. 2, and then 3, and then we're gonna finish with 2 beige single crochets. And then we're going to repeat this again 2 more times. 1, 2, and then we're going to make 2 more beige stitches because that's how this pattern sequence on this row started. So now we're making also 3 almond stitches after that, but we're going to, like I said, repeat that 2 more times all the way around, and you can see our pattern is slowly coming together. Again, I chose to keep this part where I'm going all the way around, so you can see me in action a little bit as well instead of cutting this out. I might not do that every time in future tutorials or so, but sometimes I think it's important to see me working as well. And I don't do this perfectly every time. Sometimes I have to go back and I need to change as well and double check in my pattern because yeah, sometimes you don't see how everything will look until it comes in, until you've made a few rows basically. So we've reached our end again, and like you can see maybe me stretching out a little bit the piece. That's okay, just do that if you feel like it too. I think it makes it more even that way. We're going to do as we've done in each and every row so far. We're going to fish up our loop again, and then we are going to also go and pick up another beige loop because the next row, row number 12, will also start with the color beige. So you can tighten your threads a little bit, and then we're going to go in and fish up a beige thread. Connected with our other loop, and that will again be our first stitch on this row, and this is how it looks right now. And here we should make a chain stitch before we make 2 more single crochets, and then we will technically have 3 beige single crochets. And now we will make 5 almond stitches or single crochet stitches. So we've changed the colors there before we ended that last beige one. So now we have 1 almond stitch, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Change color to beige before we continue, and we will make 3 beige single crochets. So maybe you've now noticed that we are repeating 11 stitches 2 more times every time on every row. So we're making one sequence of color combinations with 11 stitches, and then we're repeating basically that 3 times in total on each row. So we're going to do that now, starting with the beige color. Once again, we will, when we reach the end, we will finish with a beige color because the next row will have more beige stitches. So we will do exactly like we did last time. I have maybe not mentioned this, but it is important to make sure that you pull a little bit on the carrier thread just to make sure everything is tight and neat so that the thread that we are carrying between the stitches, the non-active thread, is not peeking out through our stitches. So make sure you always do that. And again, here we're tightening our stitches a little bit, our threads a little bit. And again, I'm stretching this whole thing around. I think it makes a difference. So now you can see it's starting to become that shape that we are looking for. We're going to make sure that the carrying thread, the almond color, is in between before we go and pick up another beige loop. There, and then we will connect it with the other loop before we seal it together. Just like that. And we're going to make 4 beige single crochets. So notice now that I did not make that chain stitch. And that is okay if you happen to forget that. I'm gonna show you how I will fix it, but I think that the best result is when you make the chain stitch as well. But we did not do it this time. 1 almond stitch, single crochet stitch before we make another beige single crochet stitch, and then back to almond. So we're changing a lot of colors here. So back to the almond color, making 1 almond, and then back to beige, and we're going to make 4 beige single crochets, and then we're going to repeat this. So we started with 4 beige single crochets, then we made 1 almond single crochet, then 1 beige single crochet, then 1 almond single crochet, and now we're finishing with 4 beige single crochets. So we will repeat that 2 more times all the way around. And I will show you how we will correct that little mistake that I did in the beginning of this row. There are many ways to finish or start new rows. This is just one example on how you can do it. I tend to change my ways, improve my ways all the time. So let me know if you have any good tips to share as well, if you want to. Or you can even choose to do it in your own way this time as well. This is obviously just suggestions and an alternative on how you can do it. So now we've reached the end of this row. And remember, I forgot my chain stitch, right? So what we are going to do is that we are going to actually go through that first stitch that I made, basically. But I can see now that I have a little thread in there that I need to soon weave in. So to make sure that it doesn't get too deep before I can even sew it in. So I am gonna take a little moment to just weave that little thread in so I don't need to think about that one later. And I will basically just bend this out and just go through the threads. And because my stitches are very tight, this will hold very well. And also because of all the changes in colors, which also help to make sure that our threads will not stick out or what do you say? They will not basically, there's no risk for it to become a hole in this bottle bag, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, just keep being, weave it in just back and forth a few times, and then cut the extra little piece of the thread off. There we go, and now we can continue with the walls of our bag, and you can correct it a little bit. It's, don't worry if it lost its shape a little bit, it will all become back to its original shape very soon anyway, so don't worry about that. So like I said, I had forgotten to make this chain stitch, and notice that basically now. And so now when we have our stitches, which is supposed to be correct, we have to just use what we have. So we're going to go into that first stitch, basically not the chain stitch this time, considering it doesn't exist here, and we're going to just pull through. And this is actually something you can do as well, it's not wrong. I just prefer that extra chain stitch when I changing my rows. So we're connecting our two loops there, and we're going to continue with the beige color, and we're going to start the new row and make 3 beige single crochets. So this will be our first, and I was quick here on making sure that I made my chain stitch as well. So here we go, 1, oh well, 2, and then 3. We changing color to almond, and then we will make 5 almond single crochets. So 1, and you can see already that the bottle bag here has gotten its shape back after our little decoy, or not decoy, but our little pause there to weave in that thread in the beginning there, the beige thread. So we're going back to beige and then making 3 beige single crochets, and then we will repeat these 11 stitches 2 more times. So we'll continue with the beige color all the way around, like I said, and then repeat those stitches. And soon here we've reached the end, and we're going to make 3 beige stitches before it's time to change row again. And we will continue with the beige color as we've done for a few rows now. So now we have that chain stitch to go through, and we will pick up our little loop. Sorry for going off camera here, but we will drag that loop into the inside of our work again. And then we're going to pick up that second beige color again, second beige loop, and making sure that the almond color is in between there. Try again. Here we go. And now we're connecting our 2 loops, tightening our threads a little bit here. And now it is time to make that chain stitch, but I will forget about it and then go back, so don't be fooled by the video here. I'm just giving you a little bit of a heads up. So here is me thinking I've done it the correct, and then realizing that, hold on, nope. And now I'm going back and making sure we are making that chain stitch before we continue. So we're now going to make 2 beige, so with one with the chain stitch and then the second one that we just did, and then we're going to do 3 almond stitches, so 2, and then 3, and then we're changing to beige and making 1 beige and then back to almond again. And we're going to make 3 almond single crochets before we're going back to beige. 2, 3, and then the beige color, and we're making 2 beige single crochets, so 1 and then 2, and then we're gonna keep repeating this. So we started with 2 beige, so it's gonna be 4 in a row here before we're changing our color back to almond. So 1 and 2, and we'll continue all the way around as usual. And as you can see, we're starting to see that beautiful pattern come to life. Almost all the way around. And here we are, and we are gonna finish with the beige color. So we're making our last 2 beige stitches before we're connecting them. So we're going from the inside of our work with our crochet hook, and then we're gonna pick up that loop that we just left as usual, pull it to the other side, pull a little bit on our strings and or threads, and then we're gonna pick up the beige color, pick up another loop of the beige color, connect them, and then we're gonna also, not to forget, we're gonna have 1 beige single crochet is going to be the first on our 2nd row. So we're actually changing almost straight away here, as you can see, and making that chain stitch with the almond color. And then we're making 3 almond single crochets before we're making 3 beige single crochets. So it was a quick change there when it's just 1 stitch of one of the colors in the next row. So as you can see, it went a bit fast maybe there. And then after these 3 beige stitches, we're changing and making 3 almond single crochets stitches. So 1, 2, and then 3, we're changing to beige, and then we're going to make 1 beige single crochet. But we're going to start the next row, or the next, the second repeat of this pattern with beige again. So that's why we're going to have 2 beige single crochets next to each other. Me hesitating here, but this is how far we go to repeat the pattern. So as you can see, these first 11 stitches, me double checking, but yeah, so we're making sure that we're making the amount of stitches that we're supposed to do. So here we are. I'm having 11 stitches, and now we're going to repeat that again. So the second one is a beige, and then like I did before, we're going to make 3 almond, 3 beige, 3 almond, and then 1 beige again. Sometimes I always go back and I have to double check myself, so don't be afraid to pause the video if you need to do the same. But you can also double check in the written description if you don't want to follow this video by itself. Last repetition of these 11 stitches. And next row we'll start with the almond color, so we will make sure that we're going to finish with the almond color as well after we've done that 1 beige single crochet. So we're changing to almond, and then As always, tightening our threads a bit before we're closing this row. So we're taking our hook from the inside, picking up that loop, pull it through to the inside of our work. Make sure everything is a little bit tight and nice. Picking up a almond loop this time, connecting them to before we're making our almond chain stitch. So sorry for being off camera here, but I'm making sure that my yarn tubes are not tangled together because that can create problems later on or while we are crocheting. So making sure that we're taking our time here. Almost forgetting that chain stitch, but there we go. 1, 2, and then 3 before we're changing to beige, and we're gonna make 5 beige single crochets before we're going back to the almond color, and we're gonna make 3 almond single crochets. So here we go with the beige color. We're at 3, 4, and then last one, change almond color, and then we're making 3. And then as always, we're gonna repeat those 11 stitches in that color sequence 2 more times. So all in all, 3 times. So now we're soon finishing this row as well. And we're gonna finish with the almond color. As always, go through that first stitch on the row, pull your loop back to the inside of your work, fish up another almond loop, make sure your threads are okay, and then connect them, and then we're gonna make an almond chain stitch, and then it is the last row of the pattern before we're gonna repeat it depending on how tall you want your bottle bag to be. So this one will be 2 almond single crochets, so we're switching now to 7 beige single crochets. Changing colors, and now we're gonna make 2 almond single crochets, but remember we started with almonds, so we're gonna keep that color for 2 more stitches after these 2 almond ones, and this is where we repeat the pattern that we've done, the color sequence of 11 stitches 2 more times, and then this is the last row really before you can start to repeat the pattern from row 8 to, well, I will repeat these rows that we've made only from row 8 to row 14 because that's all I need for the length of my water bottle, but you can choose yourself if you want to repeat less rows or more times depending on the length of your bottle. So here we are, and you can always like stretch your work a little bit and make sure that it looks nice, but here you can see the pattern and how it looks. So, like I said, depending on how tall your bottle is, it's going to depend on how many times you want to keep repeating the pattern that we've now created. And this is, like I said, we're not going to do a double, but we are going to just do a few more rows. So this is how it looks, and it is now time to make that last row of almond stitches all the way around. And we do have 33 single crochets all the way around, which is an uneven number. And that means that we're going to have one side that has either one stitch too many or less and one stitch less than the other side. So I didn't really care too much about that. I did not decrease, which you can do if you choose to do so. I just accepted that one side will have one stitch too much, really. But before we start, I wanted to attach my metal ring on the side because that part where we have changed row is more visible here. So I don't want that to be on the sides that might be seen when wearing it. So I chose to have it where the straps and that side at the same place basically. So as you can see here, I am attaching the D ring or this metal ring with a single crochet, and I was actually trying to figure out what was the best way to do this. So it takes me a little bit of practice here before I decide what to do. As you can see, I was trying to attach it this way, but I end up taking off one of stitch and then make a chain stitch before continuing my single crochet stitches per usual. And you can choose if you want to have 4 or 5 stitches that are going through this metal ring. You don't have to have a D metal ring. You can also have round rings or no rings if you choose to attach your shoulder strap straight to the bag. That's also possible. I chose to do it this way though. And after I've done this, I will do approximately 11 to 12 single crochets all the way to the other side. You can yourself choose if you want to decrease somewhere to make it semi-even. I didn't want to risk it being a little pinch in my opening anywhere, but I'm sure you can get around that. I just chose to make it very simple for myself and not bother too much about a stitch here or there, but really. So I will keep working around until I've reached 11 stitches. And before I finish my 12th stitch, that's when I will attach my second metal ring. However, after making this bag, maybe I would have done even 12 stitches and then maybe attached it on my 13th stitch. But I think it's up to you and what you feel is visually beautiful and even. I think that you barely notice it now, even though I feel like I would maybe have done an extra stitch on that side. It also depends on which side you think will be showing. Well, which shoulder you will be carrying this bottle bag on, but it doesn't really matter. So we're gonna make here a few stitches that goes inside. So we have 2 that goes inside this metal ring. Now 3. I want it to feel very stiff though. I want it to really be not moving around too much. So on this side, I end up with 4 single crochets before continuing to the other side. I don't know why I had to do it that way, but so I'm just doing my first stitch now. That can take us to the other side. So this is how it will look. This is what I mean with the attaching part or the attaching stitches not being visible on the outside, but on the inside more. So then I'm working myself all the way back, making another 12 to maybe 13 stitches, I guess, But I think I also made the choice this time to make 5 single crochets going through the other metal loop or metal ring, and just to get rid of that last stitch. So it's not overly visible, but again, you do what you think looks the best for you. I think that this solid color on the top makes it look very neat. We are going to make one more row with slip stitches all the way around, just to strengthen this opening of this bottle bag, and also to give it that final touch that looks very put together, basically. So here you can see what I'm doing, trying to attach the last 2 stitches, which means that we will have then 5 single crochets going through this metal ring. And this was me, I think, trying to get rid of that unevenness on both sides. And then we're going to attach those like we've done before by going outside, or leaving the loop that we're in and then going through that first stitch. I think I ended up going through on the side there, but we'll see. It will look very neat in the end. When you're having tight stitches, it might be a little hard to get that hook through, but keep going. There we go. And now we're picking up our loop and push it or pull it into the inside of our bottle bag. And then we're gonna make sure we tighten our threads a bit. This is sort of how it looks. You can even double check if you think that it looks semi-even. And if you're happy, then it's time to make those slip stitches like I mentioned all the way around. And that will make this opening a little bit more tight and neat and professional looking, if you ask me. So I go in from the side there, the last stitch really. Sorry for being out of the camera a little bit, but I'm pulling through the thread. So I'm on this side here. And then now we're just going to continue all the way around. And I think this also helps secure those metal rings a little bit extra, which is a good thing. And it can be a little bit hard to go through all the stitches, but after you pass these metal rings, I think it becomes a little bit easier to work yourself all the way around. And now you can see a little bit on how it will look. And I think this just makes everything come together. And here you can see that I'm working behind that metal ring. I'm not trying to go between the ring and the bag. I try to make sure that it's also being part of the stitches, that they also go, or crossing that a little bit to make sure that it's being secured a little bit extra. And there we go. And once we've reached the end here and made our last single slip stitch, we are gonna cut off some of the, well, we're gonna cut off the thread and make sure we have enough to sew in and make sure that it doesn't unravel. And that is how it looks. And we're gonna do the same with the beige if we have not done that before. And as you can see, we have a little thicker edge there, which looks nice. And this is how it should be looking at this point. And you can double check if you think that it looks even here as well. I think, at least for me, it's enough, even enough. But yeah, it's up to you what you feel about that. So It is time now to make sure that we can get those threads sewn in, and I will show you how I make that thread that is on the outside to just melt basically into the rest of the stitches. So we're going in from the side, pretending that we're making maybe a slip stitch, but yeah. So from the side there, and then we're gonna go in to the middle of that stitch that we just came from, and then make sure we're on the inside, go inside of the bag. So you can see now that you can't really tell where our start or finish is. And then just push that thread into the inside so we can weave it in. There we go. So that's how it's gonna look. And now we're gonna sew them in on the other side. Make sure you're going back and forth a few times so that the thread is really secure. It is now time for our strap. So we are going to start with making a loop on your hook. And then we are going to make 6 single crochets into our metal ring or D-ring that we are using here. And then after the 6 single crochets, we're going to make 1 chain stitch before we turn. And we're going to work flat or back and forth and stop when we reach the length that we want to have. So we got there. Can stretch it a little bit. And you can choose to make a thinner strap, shoulder strap if you want to. I just thought that the thicker one looked a little bit more robust and cool. So we're gonna now, like I said, turn, and then we're gonna make 1 single crochet and then 1 slip stitch, and then 1 single crochet and then 1 slip stitch, all the way till we reach the end of this row. So 1 slip stitch, 1 single crochet, 1 slip stitch, and then 1 chain stitch before we turn. And we're going to repeat this and again start with a single crochet and then a slip stitch. So 1 single crochet, 1 slip stitch, 1 single crochet, 1 slip stitch, 1 single crochet, 1 slip stitch, and then chain 1 and turn. And then we're, as I said, just going to keep on and repeating this until we reach a length that we want. And this is very gives a very cool texture in my opinion, and it is less stretchy than if, let's say, you would just do regular single crochets. I also love that the strap on this beige and almond one was a little thicker than, for example, what I tried out on the purple one. I think it gives a cool look in the end. And you could technically make these straps before you attach the metal rings to your bottle bag. Sometimes maybe that would be easier, but I chose to do it in this order this time. Look how that is now turning out. I think it looks really cool. So always start with that one single crochet and then one slip stitch. And we're only using the almond color, the main color of this bottle bag. One single crochet, one slip stitch, and then one chain stitch, and then turn. I'm not going to do the full shoulder strap with you guys, but I just want you to get started here. And the amount of rows that I repeated, well, I can't tell you exactly, but I will tell you that once I felt like I was finished was when I was measuring approximately 111 centimeters, because I wanted it to be possible to put it over my head as well, so it can hang on my shoulder and I didn't have to risk dropping it or like it slipping down from the shoulder that I was carrying from. So I wanted it to be possible to have it across my chest basically. So that's why I made it a little bit longer. But if you, let's say, just want to be able to carrying it with your hand and not even have it over your shoulder, you can even make it just a short strap handle. You can also choose to make it shorter if you want it to just be possible to have it on one shoulder and not maybe both, etc. So you can choose. You can even choose to make two straps if you feel like it, and attach that a little bit differently then. But this is how I chose to do it. So one single crochet, one slip stitch, one single crochet, one slip stitch, one single crochet, and one slip stitch, and then chain one. So I will continue off camera and reach the length that I'm going for, and we will together attach it to the bag. So now we've made it as long as we want. So we're gonna now attach it to the second D-ring with 6 single crochets. And as you can see, I am also trying to make it look as close to the other side as possible. So I have chosen also to lay it down like this, and make sure that your shoulder strap has not twisted around before attaching it, because that will just have like make you have to redo it all again. So that would be too bad, but yeah, this is how it's gonna look. And then we are just gonna cut off some piece of like a little, so we have a little length of the thread before we sew it in back and forth a few times, making sure that it's really secure. And this is how it will look. So it looks similar to the other side of our shoulder strap. And you can finish off with a little chain stitch if you want to. And just, as I said, just cut off a piece of the thread and sew it in. Thank you so much for taking part of this instructional video. I hope you have your own now Venice bottle bag in your hand, maybe bags, but at least one in your hand after you've seen this instructional video. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or follow me on YouTube, and maybe you find other videos there that are enjoyable for you to watch, or maybe something that you might learn more from. And if you have any comments or any ideas on how I can do these or make these videos better, don't be afraid to let me know, either in the comment section below, or maybe you want to DM me on Instagram, where I have my Instagram account under michelleadra.crochet. So with that, thank you so much, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment.